Well, good evening, internets. This is me, DP Knudten, coming at you live from, well, my basement office. And it's another edition of BOOKWARD BOUND, my 301-day journey from I should really do this to done. And what journey am I talking about? I'm talking about taking that long journey from I should write a book to that book being actually self-published on Amazon's Kindle Direct Publishing platform. And that's the task I set for myself beginning on Friday, March 5th of earlier this year, 2020. And I've been doing it every single night ever since. In fact, I was just doing the math right as we were coming on live. Today is actually consecutive day number 262, which means I only have 39 days left to finish this book. But that's okay, because I'm actually in really good shape. In fact, last night was the first night that I actually started going through and really closely pre-editing, proofreading, etc., the entire book. And let's head on over there right now, because then I can show you exactly what I was doing last night. Sorry, wrong buttons. I'm taking you into Scrivener, which is the application that I'm using to actually write this book. You can see it right here. Here's the main window where you do the writing. And over here is the, call it the chapter pane or the sections pane. And you can see all the various sections in the book and that they're all color-coded. The more green you see, the more happy I am, because that means that that section is actually done and kind of first pass proofread and edited. But the blue ones still have a fair amount of stuff to do. In fact, that's what I'm going to do tonight. I'm actually going to go through these and start changing these from blue flags to green flags by doing a first pass, proofread, and edit. And how do I do that? Well, I read the section aloud. And this is actually a killer tip for anybody writing a book that wants to have a very vocal style of writing. Read it aloud. And I don't know if this goes back to my days as an actor or what, but I always found that the way to tell if something's well written is to read it aloud, because if you can read it aloud cleanly with no stumbles or trips or running out of breaths and stuff like that, that's the indication of a good sentence, you know. And it really, really works, or at least that's key to my style of writing, especially for a book like this. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read this section aloud and look for the bumpy spots that might need a little bit of sandpapering, if you will. So this is a section, obviously, about Mark Schaefer, a guy I really love, called "You Are Greater Than Ink." Have you ever attended a keynote presentation that confirmed every single thing you've been thinking about and believing wholeheartedly for the past 2 decades? I have, and the speaker of truth I saw was a guy named Mark Schaefer. Just about everyone who works in and around the digital marketing space has undoubtedly run across Mark online or in real life in the form of one of his best-selling books. Or masterful presentations, because I think I used the word keynotes. In real life, in the form of one of his best-selling books or masterful presentations. While I knew of Mark in 2019 and had read a fair amount of his work, I had no idea we were going to be so simpatico on so many different areas regarding branding in general, personal branding in particular, and the relative value of search engine optimization. A necessary evil with an accent on the evil part. Until he presented the final keynote at Social Media Marketing World 2019. I want to the relative value. We both. It's I don't know if I need that. Because that doesn't make sense unless you've listened to the paragraph. Okay, let's try that sentence again. Well, I knew of Mark in 2019 and had read a fair amount of his work. I had no idea that we were so simpatico on so many different areas regarding branding in general, personal branding in particular, and personal branding in particular. Until he presented the final keynote at Social Media Marketing World 2019. Within seconds, my head was nodding up and down like a bobblehead doll. But by the end, I was just this side of a maniacal enthusiast screaming, "Testify, brother, and here's why." You know that feeling when someone voices everything you believe to the core? I've already said that. So... I saw this PowerPoint slide and practically wept. Thanks, Mark. Here's why. And I think I need to do this. The thing that blew me out of the water. Okay, so this is all, well, I should read it anyway. The thing that blew me out of the water was when you gave the closing keynote at Social Media Marketing World this year in San Diego. And I'm literally in your congregation, you know, singing along practically. And then you throw up a slide that says the personal brand is the company brand, and I almost had a coronary. Because I believe that so much. Coronary. Because I believe that so much. What you do, what do you mean, or let's just clean that. What do you mean when you say the personal brand is the company brand? Mark says, I actually remember you. I think you tweeted about that either on Twitter or Facebook. Yeah, I remember you posting about that. Well, I think it's a very simple idea. I think it's a very intuitive idea, really, that trust in businesses and in brands and in advertising has declined 10 years in a row. And if you look at all the research that shows who do people believe, it's each other. They believe in other people. They believe in company leaders, technical experts. Entrepreneurs, they trust in entrepreneurs is very high. And so I think, you know, we need to rethink really what the company brand, what the company brand is all about. The company brand used to be what we broadcast to people. It was what we thought we were in control, of our message. It was what our message. And today, a company brand is what people tell each other in building this effective social media presence. You know, it's maybe another way to talk about personal branding in the digital age, having this effective social media presence. That's a life skill today. And if more people in your company have that life skill, then you're going to win. If you have that life skill as an individual and you're known, and your competitors aren't. As an individual, and you're known, and your competitors, you're going to win, right? Comma, right? That's what branding is all about, having some emotional edge over your competitors to help people choose you. Mark's point of view on all this and more is exactly mine, which is why I was on this and more. I don't like is exactly mine. I would not agree more with which is why I was so thrilled to have him as a guest on the Nonfiction Brand podcast. Thanks for the introduction, Andy Christadina. You can listen to the 2 episodes we did for yourself, and you really should, but I wanted to highlight a couple of things he said that are 100% germane to the central topic and thesis of this book. Why personal brand? For all the reasons Mark listed above. And the kicker? Read on. Mark, I think that's one of the reasons why Tesla has higher market value than Ford Motor Company. Because you have an emotional connection to Elon Musk, and you know, he's... we don't need all those he's in there. He's an imperfect human being. But he's a real human being. And he talks... being, period. And he talks like a human being. And so, I mean, who's the one person you love at Ford? Who's the one person you love at General Motors? Is there anybody? There isn't anybody, right? Right? I saw this ad the other day. It was for some truck, and I don't know what they were promoting, but they were like listing these highlights. And they said, you know, this truck has dual torque suspension. Has dual torque suspension. Now, I don't know what that is. I don't care what that is, really. Really. Honestly, there's probably a very, very small fraction of people in the whole world who know or care about what that is. But, you know, there's a great emotional connection to like Ford versus Dodge. You're a Chevy guy or you're a Ford guy when it comes to trucks. I say guy, but you know person. And that's what great marketing is really all about. It's building emotion. If you're not building emotion, then you're just in sales. If that's some bold. You're just trying to move merchandise. And there's a role for that too, right? But increasingly, the personal brand, that's what people connect the emotion to. You know, it's a lot easier to create an emotional connection to you or me, or to me, a live person, a real face, than a jingle or dual torque suspension. Mark Shaver, Fiction Brand Podcast, give that italics. All right, I'm going to start a note. A new note. Book because I want to turn these into inspirational quotes. Just insane. Mark Schaefer. Okay. I really can't recommend Mark and his works enough, but to get you started, you need to pick up a copy of his 2019 book, Marketing Rebellion, The Most Human Company Wins. In it, he makes a compelling argument, complete with metrics and data, that we are currently in, or practically out of, a rebellion in marketing where the power dynamic is fundamentally shifted. And guess where all that power now resides? With you, the consumer, and with you, the personal brand. Get the book, and you'll be manning the barricades right alongside me and Mark. Vive la rebellion. Non-fiction brand moral of Mark's story. If you think your company and its logo, name, and brand graphic standards are more powerful than you, think again. You are the carrier of value within any. You are the carrier of value within any organization. That's a good line. Copy. Carrier. You are. Is it a carrier that you are? Than any organization. Consequently, you should spend at least as much time, effort, and resources on those as those companies do to discover, craft, and communicate your distinct place in the market. And the best part, whatever effort you put in on their dime comes right out the door and goes right out the door and stays with you. Say it with me. If you don't own it, it's not yours. But your personal brand is 100% owned and based on you. Yeah, so I'll make all these inspirational quote graphics for use on Instagram and Facebook and crap like that. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about. Oh. If you'd like to hear more about and from Mark Schaefer, check out episodes 64 and 65. Try for doing it like, let's go. Okay. Oop. All right, so this is looking good here. So I am going to go ahead and change this from the blue flag of kind of done to a green flag of Scrivener completeness, because I'm going to actually have to take this and port it on over to Windows, to Microsoft Word, I mean, where I'll do the final formatting of everything within the book. And I'll also do final proofing and pagination, orientation, verification, all that stuff. And then I'll save it as a final PDF, press-ready PDF for publishing on Kindle Direct Publishing. So there's still a couple more steps involved, and each one of those steps will require the same level of proofing and editing with slightly different focuses. But anyway, hopefully you can see where I'm going. I'm feeling okay about this. Let's go to the next blue. This is pretty long. Huh. Did I work on it tonight? 20 minutes. Yeah, I want to go to this last one and see if there are other people I can think of that I'd like to direct people to. I hope you'll them out via the Google and see what they have to offer. And if you ever reach out to any of them, I hope you tell them DP sent you. Yeah, that's cool. All right, so Ann Hanley, Grant Baldwin, only need Diesel, Scott Gall, Pat Flynn, Michael Port, Michael Stelzner. Who else is doing stuff that impresses the bejesus out of me? I think this should be the last section, right? Do it like that, and then this. It's your spotlight. Now it's time for you to own it. I'm going to sneeze. And sneeze I did. Wow. Okay, so where are we? Incredible power. All right. By now, everyone's heard about it. By now, everyone's heard about it, right? That thing where even if you've been working diligently in the same business sector for decades, you still have this gnawing suspicion that you really don't belong there. That for all your hard-earned expertise, you still shouldn't be openly sharing your thoughts about it, as there are real experts out there who know everything about the big picture when you're only truly expert in your own little piece of it. Yeah, that imposter syndrome. Well, here's something I've learned over the years. Everyone is a unique combination of expert and amateur. Anyone who says there's only one right way to do anything is really just revealing that they don't know, that they only know of one right way to do things, to do a given thing. The given thing. Given. In fact, the only true originators in any endeavor are the ones who creatively bend or break the expert rules of the day. All of this is to say that if you suffer from imposter syndrome, you need to stop. This book is not here to tell you how. There are a ton of books out there that can provide help if you need it. But as far as I'm concerned, the best way to be cured of the malady is to ignore it and start sharing what you know loud and proud, because what you know is developed over years, and what you know is something that others may not. And may not. Imposter syndrome, why I like it. If imposter syndrome stops you from sharing and demonstrating your expertise, that's bad. But if it keeps you honest, making you work harder and dig deeper, that's actually good. For years, I had a personal rule of thumb that the second you don't think you're a hack, you are one. I call it my hack axiom. Axiom? Better TM it before some pharmaceutical company does. Axiom. A cure. Imposter syndrome. Yeah. May cause. Yeah, I'll leave it there. Call it my hack axiom. Or haxiom. Or haxiom. Or haxiom. Better TM movie. Axiom TM. I still think that's 100% true. If you don't think you're a hack, you are one. If you think your fill in the blank, whatever, is perfect, I can absolutely guarantee you're wrong. But if you're always just a little bit paranoid about the data you've included in your report or the assumptions that underlie your findings, that's going to make you double and even triple check them to ensure their rigor and quality. Fact is, every fill in the blank, whatever, has a flaw in it somewhere. If imposter syndrome forces you to seek that flaw out, that's a win in my book. But no matter how debilitating the syndrome can be, there's one that's even worse. Expertise laryngitis. Where imposter syndrome can slow you down, expertise laryngitis stops you altogether. It's that feeling of, yeah, I have ideas to share and stuff to say, but what if no one wants to read my blog, view my work, watch my live stream? Oh. It's like being a person who never throws a party because you're afraid no one will come. Sound familiar? To many it does. Could be you're still healing from that 6th grade birthday party where no one came. Or the 7th grade dance where the girl you asked to go with you, and she said yes, wouldn't even dance one dance with you the entire night. Yes, Beth, I still remember that 45 plus years later, weeping quietly to self. But here's the core reason everyone should be creating and communicating their personal brand. There's only one person with your experience, expertise, and point of view. But there's an entire world out there who might benefit from hearing your unique voice. So we'll hit that with bold and italic. You have a voice. It deserves to be heard. If you feel like an imposter, welcome to a global club of roughly 7.8 billion members with roughly 7.8 billion members. Remember my hack axiom? A corollary to that is the only qualification needed to be considered an expert in 90% of business fields is to call yourself one. And then demonstrating that you do, in fact, know something about the subject. How do you do that? Read on. That's what this book is all about. Cool. That's what this book is all. That's what this whole book is about. Expertise laryngitis affects way too many people who have the goods to share valuable information and expertise for any number of reasons, including but not limited to the fact that they do not know how or where to do it, have a lack of personal confidence, and really don't know the first thing about getting started, etc. You can literally create an endless list of reasons rationalizing your non-decision to sit on the sidelines. Back in the day of media scarcity, that made a fair amount of sense. If you didn't own a printing press, TV, or radio station, newspaper, or magazine, it was terribly difficult to build a personal brand. But now with blogs, podcasts, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Snapchat, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, et al., the printing press, radio station, TV network, and much more is all yours. And you can create content for any and all the above whenever you want for a placement cost of $0. When you think of it that way, just how much opportunity are you going to leave on the table by doing absolutely nothing, none of it? That opportunity on the table is all yours. All you have to do is pick it up by putting in some work. You know that day job you have, the one you love to hate, where all your energy and vitality is traded away for the comfort of a steady paycheck? Who really benefits from all that? Not you. All that transfers to the person signing that paycheck. Another favorite axiom of mine: hurts a little bit, truth always does. But learning it early in your career is a whole lot better than discovering it later when you have a bigger mortgage and fewer options. If you don't own it, it's not yours. One of the reasons I'm so passionate about this personal branding thing can be explained by that simple sentence. The deal most people make with their careers is that if you take the majority of my waking hours, you'll pay me for said hours and generally do right by me. In fact, there was a time when our grandparents and even some parents could start a job right out of school, put in 30 years or so with the same company, and retire comfortably. Guess what? That was then, and it sure ain't now. That was then, and it sure ain't now. The Bureau of the U.S., let's just leave it. The Bureau of Labor Statistics recently estimated that the majority of people in their study had held an average of 11.7 jobs between the ages of 18 and 48. Sure, some hop jobs like rabbits, 27% held 15 or more jobs, and 10% stayed put, in 0 to 4 jobs, but it's pretty clear that the days of the graduation all the way to retirement job is gone. And that brings me back to, if you don't own it, it's not yours. The company you work for, if you don't own it, it's not yours. And you can be gone at any time. So what else? So what do you own that no one else does? Now you're asking the right question. That was bold. What is completely yours? All the stuff mentioned above, your voice, experience, expertise, point of view, etc. That's not only uniquely yours, but not only uniquely yours, to a segment of the population, it could be and probably is incredibly valuable. To a specific segment of the global population, it could be and probably is incredibly valuable. These are your unique assets, and they could be shared right now to an entire globe hungry for your goodness, for the goodness you have to offer. The question is, are you? The second question is, why not? To be crystal clear, imposter syndrome can be a good thing, but experience, laryngitis is deadly. Expertise laryngitis, that's what I thought. Expertise laryngitis is deadly. Wanting to make sure you're adding value and providing good information is everything you share proves you're not an imposter, even though some days it might feel like you are. Why leave that in there? No, get rid of it. And to selfishly withhold the very best of what you have to offer by not sharing your voice. Is a self-deadening disease, but the cure for it is just so easy. Convinced? Good. Let's fill this personal brand prescription and get your expertise voice into shape. The truth about false modesty. True story, happened today. I was on a call with a client about the conception, production, and launch of a new podcast for their business, and something happened that is a near perfect example of what I think of as the false modesty fallacy. It's still really early days on this project, on this podcast and this was the very first time we had discussed anything with the full project team about the podcast, what it would be about, how we would be creating a format for the show, and some thoughts about who would be hosting it on a regular basis, etc. Period. When I asked a question about who the host would be, they instantly named the woman who would be anchoring the show. Then I asked some questions about the show's title. Current lack thereof. They had an initial working title that I think might end up being the actual one. But I followed up with a very important question in my mind. Will the host's name be part of the title? Something like the XYZ podcast with Penny Lane. The woman tapped to host the podcast appeared to be immediately uncomfortable. She explained that as a self-described introvert, she'd be more comfortable with her name not being part of the title. Based on what you've read so far in this book, any guesses as to what my response was? You're missing a huge opportunity to not only raise your personal brand profile, but also raise the perceived value of the company's brand at the same time. Fortunately, the non-host members of the team agreed. The reason the company is doing the podcast in the first place is to burnish its brand, demonstrate the quality of its principles, and give a human voice and face to the company name. Because here's the thing, In an event or if an event or conference is looking for speakers, they are generally looking for people first. Sure, they'd be happy to get the janitor from Google to talk about anything, but if you're a smaller regional business, they aren't likely to call to see if you've got someone who could speak to their group. But if you've got an associate that has proven they are smart through your company's podcast, pleasant and personable through your company's podcast, and really good in public speaking situations through your company's podcast, guess who they're going to want to speak from their stage? Probing further, it was clear that the host's reluctance to have her name associated with the podcast was not fear-related, but due to an admirable, but if you ask me, misguided sense of humility. For all the reasons mentioned in this section, there is just no reason not to take credit for who you are, what you do, and how you do it. And false modesty doesn't do a whole lot of good for anyone, especially you. As has been pointed out in several places within this book, if you're waiting for someone to give you full credit for your hard work, discipline, professionalism, and high-value thought leadership, you're going to be waiting for a long time. Standing back, modestly longing for the recognition you so richly deserve is a waste of your time, and certainly not indicative of the effort you put into everything else. Modesty is a virtue more dynamic people want you to have. Modesty is a virtue more dynamic people want you to have so you don't get in their way. I'm dead serious here. And the Pulitzer Prize-winning historian Laurel Thatcher Ulrich said it best in a 1976 article that became the title of her 2007 book, Well-Behaved Women Seldom Make History. Dr. Ulrich slayed the concept of false modesty dragon with just 5 words. Is the pen mightier than the sword? It is when it's backed by a brilliant mind wielding the truth. The idea applies not just to women either. Again, if you're waiting for someone to power up the spotlight, then point it at you, it's going to take a while and will probably never happen. So save yourself a lot of time and heartache by getting off your butt and out on the stage and step into your own spotlight. But I'm scared. I know, honey. We all are. But the thing that high-performing folks master is the reprogramming of themselves, of their fear into the perception of fear, into an acceptance of, into fear, into excitement. It's a killer psychological hack the pros do, and so can you. How? Simply look at what they do to kill the fear and embrace the excitement. Study, think, and develop your own point of view. The first step is to study and study deeply via the careful study. Study. The first is study. Whatever you're doing. Notice I didn't say learn. There's a good reason for that. A lot of people think the definition of the words is synonymous with being taught. And so they seek out a teacher to help them. That's a good strategy for some, but for people like me who like to DIY everything, it's more important to go into study mode, the first step toward doing it yourself. Here's an example: creating a podcast. It's a super smart content creation strategy, and a lot of folks want to do it so they connect with a podcast authority teacher to shortcut their way to a finished product. Not a bad way to go, but if you're truly embracing the study stage, you might want to start by studying the masters of podcasting yourself. What makes Joe Rogan's pod worth $100 million from Spotify? Why are several national public radio podcasts always in the top 10 list of most popular podcasts on Apple Podcasts? What short list of podcasts have you personally experienced that you find the most listenable, entertaining, and informational? And what do they do to make them that? Having someone else tell you the answers to the above, that's what teachers do. But answering those questions yourself because you've deeply studied them and developed your own strongly held point of view, that's when you know you know. Yeah, I'll worry about that later. Master the fundamentals. Give a player a basketball, and the first thing they want to do is dunk it. It's a spectacular move that garners instant attention, but how can you expect to build a sustainable career without mastering the basic ball handling skills? The basic ball handling skills of the game. I remember having my friend George B. Thomas on the NONFICTION Brand podcast a while back and asking him about his popular video series about HubSpot, the inbound marketing platform. Out of the blue, I asked him, how many videos did you do before you heard anything other than crickets? His answer shocked me. About 75. He went on to say that he was glad he didn't have an audience for the first 40 or so because they were terrible. Now, I'm sure he's exaggerating for effect, but he's right about those early efforts. They just are not going to be as good as later efforts that have all the benefit of the ones that went before. Rather than try to dunk one perfect video, George elected to go the route all masters take. Through the muck and mire, constantly trying to upgrade every aspect of the work and performance in order to be truly expert in the subject, the content, and delivery of the product. George didn't dunk his way to HubSpot stardom. He did it by showing up, practicing hard, and then mixing sports metaphors, stepping up to the plate. Step up to the plate and swing times 100,000. You know what an at-bat is? If you're American, it's highly likely you do, but if you're not from around here, let me explain. An at-bat is when a baseball player steps up to home plate. To the home plate, there's only one home plate. Steps up to home plate to take her turn batting against the pitcher. Pitcher throws, batter swings, and most of the time the batter misses. For you, cricket aficionados out there, it's the same thing that happens between bowler and batter. I bring this up because once you've mastered the fundamentals, it's all a matter of at-bats. One of my favorite podcasts is Grant Baldwin's The Speaker Lab. It's really a great one for anybody interested in becoming a professional speaker or even a more proficient one. I can't tell you how many episodes of that I've listened to, but I can tell you that it seemed like every other episode featured a guest who shared the same words of advice to listeners. It's all a matter of at-bats. You need to get in front of an audience as often as possible for so many reasons, just a few of which I've listed here. To get comfortable in front of people, to develop your stage presence, to find out if what you want to say is what your audience actually wants to hear, to master the equipment you'll be using, microphone, presentation, clicker, projection system, To have a viable plan B when the equipment doesn't work, which is guaranteed to happen. To introduce yourself to audience members who might want to book you, to build connections and ideally add them to your mailing list, to try out new material, and the list could go on more or less forever. Fear is flammable. But the most important reason to me is to burn the fear out of you. Preparation will always help you with your confidence, but the irrational fear you feel can only be dealt with by confronting it as early and often as you possibly can. A personal example I can point to goes all the way back to when I was in year 3 of my professional career as an advertising copywriter in Atlanta, Georgia. If you've watched any of my videos or live streams, you probably noticed the fact that I've got a few guitars on the wall behind me. That's because I love guitars and tried my hand at the whole singer-songwriter thing. Not full-time, seriously, but every Monday night for the open mic. But every Monday night I'd head over to the locally famous open mic at Eddie's Attic in Decatur, Georgia. Decatur. This very popular event attracted a ton of wannabes just like me, and a few actually are, like John Mayer, Sean Mullins, and Jennifer Nettles of Sugarland. Talk about fear. Talk about fear. Try performing a song you wrote while playing guitar, the guitar you taught yourself in front of an audience used to seeing future Grammy Award winners, all while stewing in your own juices due to the 100% humidity of hot Atlanta. Scared every single time, but I went every Monday for about a year and always signed up to go first. Why? Because I'm a flippin' idiot who wanted to literally burn the fear of performing under pressure out of myself. You think that high-pressure at-bats exposure therapy worked? Yeah, it did, and it helped me in every new business presentation, speaking event, networking meetup, and public-oriented thingamabob ever since. The introvert in me doesn't necessarily enjoy those things, but I have absolutely no fear of them. According to the Washington Post Wonk blog, fear of public speaking is the #1 common phobia. That should be a new paragraph. Fear of public speaking is the #1 most common phobia in America. Can you imagine the freedom you would feel and the professional superpower you would have by overcoming this irrational fear? That's exactly what at-bats can do for you and any other thing you'd like to truly master. So grab your bat, step into the batter's box at every possible opportunity. You're going to do a lot of swinging. You're going to do a lot more swinging than hitting at first. But the more you do it, the better you'll get. All right. I think I'm going to go ahead and give this a green flag for now. And I'm also going to say that that is it for this PM. So good. I'm moving this book forward, getting it much closer. 39 days left to go, so I really got to make hay while the sun shines. But the sun is shining, and so is this book as I polish it to a high sheen, I hope. That's it for me tonight. I'm DP Knudten for the Nonfiction Brand podcast, which comes out every single Monday. In fact, a new episode dropped this morning, episode number 118, I think, with Mike Alton. A really cool guy. We had a great conversation about the value of really focusing on a very small handful of things and then constantly talking and creating content about those things so that you can be known for those things. You create a personal brand not by being a generalist, but by being a specialist. Why is my podcast called Nonfiction Brand? Because I want to be synonymous with that concept and recognized by everybody as the true prophet and evangelist of that idea, I guess. Anyway, that's it for tonight. I will see you tomorrow. But until then, theme music, take us on out.